conversation. And for every person that doesn't shut the fuck up, we will put another drink on your tab. I thought I heard it wrong. There we go, yeah. You guys are really good at shutting the fuck up, actually. Now that you practice. Anyway, here we go. Tucker, thank you very much.
Thank you, Maddie. Hello, everybody. Hello, Kansas City. What's up? Woo! All right, let's talk security automation. Everybody's favorite topic. So who am I? My name is John Tucker. You might know me from around town at places like H&R Block, Optiv, Sideris. So who knows? You know, I think that's those places employ about half this town. So yeah, that's where my MSSP experience comes from. I do other consulting, security engineering stuff, and like everybody else here, I'm a barbecue maker, coffee addict, and baseball fan. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. But tonight's talk is about security automation and what it means to me, what my definition of security automation is, but also, you know, I don't think a lot of people talk about security automation, so I love using these platforms as a way to talk about how people are implementing security automation. How many people in here like use a SOAR or like have dabbled in security automation at all? All right, we got like 3 people. I love it. This is going to be a great talk. All right, so what security automation means to me, how the market has kind of set it up, was that you have a SIM and you get alerts and you create a ticket from those alerts and maybe you'll add some gray noise enrichment or whatever to those alerts. And then you kind of stop there, you hand it off to a human and you say, human, go do the rest, right? I think it goes a little bit further than that. So I work for a company called Times. This is as much as I'll shill, I promise. But it's a no-code, low-code security automation platform which helps people link together. It's kind of like the glue of a security stack, right? So taking a different approach to this, let's say we have an alert for a new multi-factor device being registered for a user, right? It seems kind of bad, then like a FireEye report. A lot of companies have had really bad incidents based on it. What if you were able to look up that person in a directory, reach out to them on Slack, and say, hey, did you actually add, like, did you get a new phone yesterday, right? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but at least you're like lowering that gap to being able to say, hey, like this 2-factor authentication piece that allows access into my network, was that actually you doing that, right? And if it isn't, you need to be on top of disabling that as fast as possible and clearing sessions and things of that nature, right? So that's what security automation means to me. In my position, I'm currently the manager of an organization called Times Labs. I get to just think about cool security automations day in, day out, and I have a team that that's all that we do, right? And that gives me a really nice insight and view into a lot of numbers and a lot of like strategies that companies are using that hopefully I can take and give to you all today. All right. One thing that we started off with a little bit last year, it actually has kind of the foundations of a SecKC meeting, is where this idea really percolated. It's called the Automation Capability Matrix. So whoever's knowledgeable in MITRE ATT&CK, this is like the automation version of that, okay? So it's a set of techniques designed to help security automation teams understand what is possible. It's not a specific, if you have CrowdStrike, you do this. It's if you have an EDR, you can probably do this, because many of them have the same capabilities. Each capability in the matrix is standalone and provides a lot of great info about like what it can do. But when you join a couple of these capabilities together, you get a much like broader workflow. So think you get a phishing email submission, you want to create a ticket to track that, you want to look up and analyze the headers in that email, you want to pull out all the domains and URLs and analyze those, and maybe you want to add those to a block list, right? So each of those pieces is its own individual capability, but when you put them all together, you have a really verbose and awesome phishing response workflow. So from SecKC, this is what I ended up going back home, basically drunkenly, and writing down into my iPad and saying, okay, this is a technique that somebody would do, this is a technique, and just like started jotting out this like matrix, right? And this was honestly the first version of it, posted to LinkedIn. People really thought it was awesome. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take this and do a little bit more. So from that, I took to Notion. I don't know how many people use Notion, but it provided a really great interface to publicly list everything that I was working on internally in kind of this like swim lane-y type fashion, right? So it reads left to right, top to bottom a little bit. Alert handling, issue tracking, enrichment, user interaction, response, continuity, and procedural are the main topics. And within each of those is like something that you could automate in your organization, more specifically your SOC, but maybe there could be a matrix for like red teams or something like that. This is what an individual box in that matrix looks like. So you'll have the name, the description, a couple techniques that are technology agnostic of like how you would carry this out. And below this, I cut it off, but like I'm also showing my company a couple workflows that you can get going with, like with a couple clicks, right? A little history of this. So between that like November, December SecKC meeting and January 16th is when we officially released the matrix. March 13th, I finally had my team members join times, and so they were able to really kind of like rally around creating examples for the matrix. We now have one example for every capability in the matrix, so we know it's possible. That happened on September 20th, and then on December 10th, we ended up releasing an interactive tool. So while the Notion page and website was very much like we're throwing information at you and you need to digest that, now we have an interactive tool which allows you to assess your own security automation program, right? So you can say, yeah, I do similar, this is my workflow for that, this is my workflow for opening up Jira tickets and all whatnot there. You can set the priority. I'll provide a link to this, but it's also like open source, privacy conscious. You can use it. I don't like see anything. It's just a nice tool for you to use and validate your security program. So from the matrix, it was spotted in a couple spots this year, which I was like thrilled with. I honestly couldn't believe it. We were included in a Black Hat Europe talk. There were a couple people on the internet, or yeah, on like LinkedIn that were sharing it. It was seen in a couple Reddit threads, and there was one person that said, "Thank you for sharing this. I think it's an amazing framework initiative that could be a standard for classification of store automations. A bit like the React framework, but with more focused." So React's a really cool initiative out there as well. I took a lot of inspiration from it, but it's very high level, and I wanted to make something like a little bit more specific to people. All right, so a lot of this is going to be based on the, some of these stats are going to be based on and categorized based on the automation capability matrix. But here's just the general things that maybe you can look at automating. From what we do at times, we create these workflows for people and we distribute them out in a manner called our library. And in the past year, we were able to give out almost 18,000 workflows, have 5 million executions. And we found that about 35% of all of our users, so you can sign up for times and just throw it away, 35% of everybody has utilized the libraries. So I thought that's really compelling and awesome that people are getting some value out of it in some way or form. This is a great overview of just kind of the general tools that people start with automation. So Slack and VirusTotal, I think we all knew that VirusTotal is going to be that one thing that everybody kind of starts with when they're in security and wanting to work with an API for the first time. But Slack's actually really surpassed that. I think that's just because everybody wants to funnel their alerts into Slack one way or another. Jira, CrowdStrike, Google, URL Scan, AWS, Microsoft, Abuse IPDB, and PagerDuty round out the list. I think this is a little bit representative of our client base too. I think as we grow as a company, we'll do a lot more with Microsoft and things of that nature as well. So I wouldn't be too dismissive of what this says and why, or if you can automate with that or not. We've also tagged a lot of our stories in the library. So from that, Jira had a lot of attention. Slack, virus total. People were looking up IOCs and wanting to know more, like wanting to document their workflows automatically, which I think is really compelling. So not only are you like codifying your security response, but then you can also use that automation to document like what's happening in your security organization, which is really nice. Rounding this out is URL scan, CrowdStrike, Tenable, alerts, and enrich is just kind of like catch-all topics. Then we have like the number of workflow executions that we see our customers utilizing. Slack is just carrying the torch here. But what I would really say here, based off this, is there's a capability in Slack to receive an event every time that you have an emoji added, a message posted. Like, there's just so much functionality that, for example here, I'll get to it here in a second, of how you might like see the amount of Slack executions ramp up exponentially. A couple things, so in our library, obviously we have like a search functionality to find the workflow that's actually meaningful to you. And I picked a couple topics that I thought were really interesting in the past year. So artificial intelligence is one of them. You can see that around March last year, anything kind of artificial intelligence, OpenAI, ChatGPT, those searches just increased by so much. And you can really line it up with when the ChatGPT API was released, so people were able to like introduce AI into their workflows a little bit easier. And then what happened is everybody thought, okay, this is great, but it doesn't actually give me the answers that I'm looking for. AI is like super overrated. I'm just going to move along. And then the GPT-4 API was released, and like interest started picking right back up again. We realized that the like Da Vinci models were like fine, but GPT-4 is where it's at, and now like interest is really picking back up again, and a lot of people are using AI in their like security response. Always relevant, phishing, we haven't solved it. Phishing is still like a very valuable topic. It's kind of our bread and butter for security automation. But what we have seen is like kind of trends in phishing, and there was actually a really like new phishing, novel phishing attack that people were leveraging this year by sending QR codes to people and saying, hey, scan this, we'll attack you to your phone, we'll be able to get you to a website. You can't be able to like pick out that URL from the email itself, the domain, and analyze it. You have to actually scan the QR code, right? So that's like really dangerous. A lot of companies came out with ways to, protect themselves against that, but it really caught people's attention. People started looking for answers and for opportunities to like knock that down. I want to go over a couple things. So this is going to be like a couple examples of the top workflows that we see, or the top capabilities that we see in use, and some example workflows of how you would go about implementing them. So this, the top one is like creating a tracking ticket. So opening a ticket in Jira and ServiceNow, that's going to be the top thing. Everybody knows that when you get an alert, you need to open up an incident. That's a great thing to automate. Followed by domain analysis, so taking your URLs, understanding if they're malicious or not. File hash analysis, obviously looking up the hashes and virus total. Chat alerts, so sending your alerts to chat, so in your Slack channel, just kind of flooding them out with all the alerts that you're getting. And then email attribute analysis, so looking up headers and understanding like who the sender actually was. Is that a known malicious sender? So this is what it looks like in our platform. You can see how you can kind of link together a couple of the capabilities, but what really matters here is the tracking location. So we're getting a CrowdStrike detection, that's an endpoint alert capability at the top. We're going to search for the IOC and virus total, that's hash analysis, and then we're going to move on to tracking location, creating a ticket to track that detection in CrowdStrike, and adding all that info in. And here's just kind of a graph of what that looks like as far as the most common workflows by the capability ID that I was mentioning earlier. So we have the automation capability matrix. you have a workflow created and you're tagging that workflow with what capabilities are being performed in that. And this is kind of the prevalence of those tags. So again, tracking location, user notification, hash analysis, chat alerts, and then email attribute analysis. Then we get into the amount of executions, not just like the presence of a specific like capability, but the number of times that capability was executed is another way to look at this. Chat alerts, again, you're sending like tons of alerts into Slack and just hoping that somebody picks them up or like responds to them. I think what a lot of people see is like, you're gonna still dump all of your alerts into a channel that's on mute, but you're still gonna open up a Jira ticket, or maybe you'll open a Jira ticket for some of them and actually respond in that way. That would be like the difference that I see across these two. The next one is user notification. This one's actually really fascinating, really awesome. So being able to like reach out to the user. I know I've spent like countless hours trying to track down, hey, did you actually like log in from China yesterday? That's such a time waster and like pretty bad, but sometimes you actually do want that person's like response back, depending on where they're going. I've seen a lot of really cool automations like looking up somebody's BTO too, so one thing to think about. The next one's chat events. So this is that example that I was thinking about earlier. Is we have some customers that every time that somebody sends a message in Slack to a channel, they're going to pull that out and they're going to say, does this have like AWS credentials in it? And is this a credit card number? And be able to say, okay, I need to like actually respond. Somebody's sharing information in Slack that they shouldn't be. IP analysis and IP list, these kind of go hand in hand. So look up the IPs. The second you look up an IP, it's kind of like already going to be a new reputation and a new IP that you need to deal with. So if you actually get a bad result, you'll probably want to add that to a block list and be able to like knock that down at your firewall, Palo Alto, whatever. So this is what I was talking about with the suspicious logins. So you get an IAM alert from Okta, you probably want to invalidate that session if Okta's giving you some signal that it's like a bad login. And then you can reach out to that user saying, hey, was this actually you logging in from this location? Maybe they'll log in again, and maybe it won't be suspicious this next time if you have that session cleared. But then you can also reach out to the user and get some additional context. You're probably going to do this anyways, manually in your organization anyways. Here you can see how like chat alerts can kind of just exponentially grow compared to all the other ones like user notification, chat events, and IP lookups. And then through all this, what we've been able to do through the automation capability matrix, through labeling these things, classifying them, we've been able to do like a little case study with one of our customers. So they had 25 capabilities implemented, tagged out of about 70. So I think that's good progress on them. About 10 workflows they had are utilizing Slack / commands with about 2,000 executions, which is really cool. So they're able to create these commands in Slack that anybody in their company can utilize. Say, look up an IP address. They don't have to give access, like privileged access to a specific tool. And now those people in their organization can like get additional info without having to involve a security engineer. The last note here, they think, or this is a great idea, but what they're able to do is send like a Duo or an Okta two-factor prompt. So instead of reaching out to the user and saying, hey, was this you? They only will trust the response of a two-factor authentication push, right? And Duo and Okta are two great platforms that allow you to do that. They execute that 721 times to people, which I think is pretty interesting. Unfortunately for them, they say that only saves them 6.5 hours per month. So there's two ways that I think you can like assess your security program. Time saved is an obvious one, but then there's also like the reliability that your workflow can be executed and the time it will take to like say get a user response, right? A couple different ways of thinking about it, but time saved is where everybody kind of initially goes to, but there's actually a lot there to be able to display the value of your security program. So I had a couple of recommendations just based on, this is what their automation capability matrix looked like in the assessment that we did. It's really small, but you can see like time saved and number of executions listed on each of these configuration items. Basically what I was saying to them is like, they don't have anything blocking with an IP list, a domain list, or a hash list. All of these are usually you're able to upload these to something like a CrowdStrike and say, there's a really cool functionality. If you upload hashes to CrowdStrike, you'll stop them from even being executed. You're able to like automate that really easily. And then just like document and highlight the efforts made with time saved a little bit more. They didn't have anything listed for like tracking issues or anything like that. And I think that was just they didn't have any of that tagged in at the time of the assessment that we did. And then we kind of just get into future state, so they gave me some things that they were looking at based on the automation capability matrix. So they're going to reach out to users more often, they're going to try and get their user responses more, and then they're going to like look at notifying emergency resources and better incident response handling. So you can create a incident response channel in Slack the second that you get a critical severity alert, or page out to somebody on pager duty when something happens. So I think that would be really great. More slash commands for them, and then timed escalations. So if somebody hasn't responded to an alert in a given amount of time, up the severity of that and do more with it. And then they're also going to add more response actions with the Slack bot. So artifact gathering, disabling MFA devices, and asset lookup. So artifact gathering, get this file from this host and be able to analyze it in a sandbox or something like that. And to finish off, I have a couple bold predictions just for the hell of it for next year. So I think identity is still growing exponentially. If you're doing firewall stuff and data center, I know that's very, very typical here. I think even then, everybody's having to deal more with identity and user identities, being able to knock down authentication boundaries. So definitely look at that. Resource attestation is an interesting one, but I'm getting a lot of feedback that we want the device. We want to know that the device is healthy and be able to reference automations based on that. One really cool use case that I saw was mailing laptops out to new users at a company. How do you know it's that user that's actually gotten that device, right? So I think there's a lot of cool things you can do there. SIM less. I think we've seen a lot of really cool implementations without a SIM. So the alerts are always going to be out there in your environment. You can use automation to go out and grab them instead of having to go through the time and energy to set up a SIM, a log source, parsing, all that, only then to just kind of like let the alerts sit there. So actually do something with them. All the clouds, so no matter, I think maybe up until like the past couple of years, everybody was like, we're an AWS shop, we're a GCP shop. I think the whole thing is kind of forced our hands. If you're going to acquire a company through M&A or anything like that, you're going to be forced to work with all clouds. So it'd be good to get some knowledge in all of them and how they do authentication and identity. AI and no code. If you want to leverage AI, definitely like look to the no code platforms like Times, like Make, like Zapier. You'll get a lot more out of them. And then more contextual SaaS data. There's so many SaaS platforms and they actually have like really cool info. When was the last time that you looked at like the Slack admin API to know some activity that's happening in Slack, right? And so it's that kind of thing that people are going to start digging into a little bit more as we go. And that's it. So scan the random QR code on the screen. Definitely not malware. It'll get you to the automation capability matrix. This is my info if you want to look me up, add me, talk more about automation. But really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. And any questions? Yeah, appreciate it.
analysis, do you recommend, right now our dynamic malware analysis that we use, our tool, not really good for automation. Especially since you have to, for one, it's not built out for automation, and then two, you have to obviously wait for that sandbox to execute XYZ malware, maybe it's a browser-based attack. Do you recommend a certain service for automation for dynamic malware sandboxes?
Yeah, I can go a couple different ways. Like hybrid analysis is really good. Any.run is great. I think to execute links. And then one of my guys, a bunch of different ways you can take this. One of my guys just went through like a quarter-long project to set up a lab with Terraform and Flare VM and give himself the entire playground to be able to analyze a piece of malware. And the full genesis of that is say you get a CrowdStrike detection, he's able to take that off the host and have that in his malware lab the second that detection basically occurs. So I think that's really neat. If you don't have the capabilities with your own lab,
that's kind of what we're limited to right now. It's a government-funded analysis lab, and there's no API or automation here.
Interesting.
Check with your ISACs because some of those will provide a.
It's actually provided through an ISAC.
Oh, okay.
And
it doesn't.
And it won't support any type of automation right now. And that's why you got to look at spending the big bucks to get that feature, but I get it for free right now through an ISAC. So it's that's all.
Cool.
I have a question. How do you get around the fact that any of the chat services, Slack, Teams, what have you, that they're scanning anything that you put inside in their service?
The question is, how do you get around chat services like Slack and Teams scanning what we have inside?
Yeah, you put an IP address in there, they're going to scan it, go check it out themselves, and so on and so on.
Yeah, that's a really valid question. I would say, is that maybe that would be beneficial to you, right? It's more intelligence out there in the world. I don't know if IP addresses and URLs are necessarily too sensitive or too proprietary to your own environment, right?
More so around a URL you put in there, Teams go scans it, now a bad actor knows, hey, someone's looking at this now.
Yeah, well,
and so,
good.
How do you stop Teams?
I think it's kind of on the path to stopping them, right? So, yeah. All right, thank you all.